Hello friends, it's Kayla. I'm kicking off another vlog today. It's probably going to be the next week, maybe under a week of my life, while I read 4 new releases. The first thing I'm planning on is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas because I really enjoyed the Hacienda last year. I gave it 4 stars. It was close to a 5, and I think it's going to be a really interesting mix of gothic, haunted, romance, vampire vibes. I haven't read the synopsis in so long, so I think I'll just go into it not really knowing anything, and I'll let you know along the way what it's actually about. I had this one pre-ordered, The Death I Gave Him by MX Liu, and this is a Hamlet retelling, and it's sci-fi mixed with mystery because it says it's a locked room mystery. We have a bunch of people, something is going on. I don't fully remember the synopsis of this one either, but I reread Hamlet a year ago, and I don't know that I've read a Hamlet retelling, at least in the last couple years. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm really excited to read this one. Another one of my most anticipated releases of the year was Never Whistle at Night. This one actually only got announced like a couple months before it came out, I feel like. I don't think I knew this one at the beginning of the year when I made my like 2023 most anticipated books list. Side note, I think we will go through this at the end of the video just to see what I've accomplished and what I have not. It's a dark fiction anthology all by Indigenous authors. I feel like I have read a good amount of them, yes, for sure. I think around 10 of these people I've read from, and like 20 maybe that I haven't. How many are in here? Counting is hard. Anyway, I'll probably read a couple a day. That would be fun. This is one of my favorite covers ever. And I was just gonna do those 3, but I don't know when else I would fit in Mammoths at the Gates by Niveau, and it's so short that I might as well just throw it into this video. This is the 4th book in the Singing Hills cycle, where we're following a cleric who's going around listening to people tell stories. They write them down, they keep the history. And so these are my reading plans for this video and this next week. I think I wanna start with this one. I thought I was matching my shirt. I picked out the shirt and I was like, look, I'm gonna match the book. I don't. I'm gonna ease into my reading by reading the first short story in here and the introduction by Stephen Graham Jones, and then we will begin this one. All right, it's 8 o'clock. I've had a busy day, but I've gotten into a couple things. So I did read the introduction to this and then the first story. I'm gonna tab all of them in different colors and then put the rating as I go. The first one I'm giving like a 3.5. It was about this Indigenous girl working at this lodge, and then the horrors that happened. It got horror. I don't think this is even specifically horror, it's just dark, right? Ghosts, curses, hauntings, monstrous creatures, complex family legacies, desperate deeds, and chilling acts of revenge. Okay. The intro, in very much Stephen Graham Jones style, it was basically its own story and didn't read like a traditional introduction, so that's perfect. Usually the introduction to an anthology is like, these are the themes that are usually present in this kind of work, and here's what you can come to experience, and that was not it. But that first one was by Mathilde Zeller, and I've never read from them before. So I will continue on. Now, The Death I Gave Him, it's dense. It's dense. And I'm halfway through, and I feel very proud. No, I'm not. It looks like halfway through. Hold on. Page 140 of 340. Oh, so I'm 1/3 of the way in. Okay, I'm not so proud of myself. What do I think about this? I think that right now it feels like one of the most on the nose retellings of any Shakespeare that I've read. All the characters' names start with the same letter. So like Hamlet is Hayden, I guess. That's true for most of them, but then we have Felicia, who is, I'm assuming, standing in for Ophelia. And making it into a mystery is just such an interesting choice, because if you have any recollection of Hamlet at all, I feel like there are 2 main things that you probably remember from it. One is like the ending and the tragedy of it all, and one is who's responsible for killing Hamlet's dad. And so it's not really a mystery, and not just even if you remember Hamlet, but like as the book opens, the person accuses somebody of killing them as they're like dying. So I think it's kind of odd to pitch this as a mystery, and maybe it should have just leaned more into the sci-fi and horror, because when people are constantly questioning each other, it just doesn't feel genuine. However, I'm having a good time reading it because it has footnotes and it's told in a series of like footage and recollections of this day and this time that all of these people are spending together in this like laboratory. Basically our main character, Hayden's father, died, and they're doing some various experiments leading up to his death. I don't know if that's talked about on the flap. Let's find out. Okay, so it says here they are trying to reverse death itself. And that's obviously not something that exists in the origin story. It's making Hamlet a sci-fi book. There's a lot of explanation of this research and death and how they're working on creating the idea of infinite life. And because it's told in this series of papers and interviews and recordings, you can ascertain a certain amount of what's to come, or like what has happened. And we're just following Hayden as like he decides how to prove who killed his father and perhaps avenge him. Basically, it's okay at this point. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. This is the one book of like my most anticipated list that doesn't feel as right to have on it, because like the other two authors of the novels, or the novellas that I've read from before, the whole point is that they're anticipated because I've read from them before, and then the anthology is full of authors that I've read from before. This is a debut, and so I am less justified having it on my most anticipated list, but because it was Hamlet and because the cover I just love so much, I put it here, maybe unfairly, maybe my expectations are too high, but I'm gonna read, I guess, another third, and then I'll tell you what I think at that point. When I think about my favorite things about Hamlet, the idea of everyone around Hamlet being reflections of Hamlet is one of my favorite things to think about. It's like his best qualities exist in people in the book and his worst qualities exist within people in the book, and he's interacting with people in the play, and everyone around him is kind of playing off of him constantly. He's very much the central character. Obviously it's named after him, but I think that statistically Hamlet is the play that has the most dialogue from the main character of any of Shakespeare's work. I also believe it's his longest play, time-wise, length-wise. So it makes sense that somebody would want to retell this because you do get to know Hamlet so well and how everybody is playing off of him, and you can clearly create this whole character out of him, which is interesting. I still can't figure out if I like it or not. The one thing that I'm struggling with a little bit, and I wish I wasn't, is the character of Horatio, and I don't want to spoil, like, again, is this in the synopsis? Oh my god, it is. Okay, so there's AI in here, which I love, and I love the idea of an AI becoming more conscious, more sentient, and I don't know if that's like really what it's going for here, but that's something that I like and why I do like AI and like a robot kind of character interacting with the people in the book. And I can't exactly figure out why I'm not loving it in here, but I'm not. Those are just my thoughts at like almost 2/3 of the way in. I just got a package that I'm so excited about, and I started opening it before showing you, but I can open the last part. So just pretend you care for a second. Base, I don't know if you've heard of this brand. It's Shay Mitchell. It's her luggage brand, and I've always been really into it because I just like when brands are made by people who share the process of making it and why they're doing things and clearly care about what they're doing. It's like I've never bought anything from, I can't even remember the brand's name, but is it Cassie Ho? She shares so much of like why she wants to create this pair of leggings and this skirt and what it's going to do, and she clearly takes a lot of people's opinion into account and cares about her customers, and I love getting that one-on-one with a brand, even though I've never shopped there. And that's how I feel about Base, is Shay is always coming on and she's talking about the parts of her luggage that she's making and why she's doing it. And I have had my eye on this brand for so long, but there was honestly just not a color that was really calling to me. I wanted to go with the beige, and I thought I've had it in my cart for like a year, but I just know even though it says it's wipe clean, like I would make it dirty. So then the green came out. I don't remember if this is a relaunch or a new color, but I love it. It's so my taste. And so I got 3 things. I got 2 of these. They're different, but they're serving as a similar purpose. They're like cosmetic cases. This one I think had a mirror in it, or like a spot for a mirror to go. Same with this. Is this probably the mirror? How fun. So I'm just excited about this because it has such a good structure and just the right kind of area. So like a place to put your brushes, or if you want to use this as like toiletries instead of makeup, toothbrushes can go in there and they're a little bit protected. This one I think I will use as makeup because every time I travel, and we're traveling so much this year for Liam's hockey because he's on like the travel competitive team, I always like take all my makeup and spread it out all over the counter, which is totally fine. But this cosmetic case is really cool because it opens up like fully and doesn't like collapse on itself unless you make it. So you can just leave it open and access all of the makeup and not have to pull it all out. I'm so geeked about this one. There's 2 different pockets on the inside. Oh, and then it opens up down here too. Like the bottom opens and you can put stuff in there. The actual big hard case luggage is expensive, like the suitcases. But so then I got the Weekender. This is the one I haven't opened yet. And obviously there are so many luggage brands, but I feel like she was just fulfilling a need with this and really took into account what she wants while traveling. One of them is this, which unzips on the bottom just like a cosmetic case, but it's big enough to put a bunch of shoes in. So you don't have to figure out like where to put it underneath the netting or on top of all your clothes. And it's huge. The number one reason I was excited about it is it has a laptop like protective sleeve / pocket on the inside. Oh, and it also totally pops open and stays open. And then this padded part, the perfect size for my laptop, so I can still get work done while we're out of town. So this is my new bag. I'm very excited about it. Maybe I'll give you a proper review at the end of hockey season to see if it like got scuffed up at all, or I feel like the wipe clean is good. Not that you come here for luggage reviews, but I'm so excited about it. So that's that. I'll see you when I finish my book. Did I even finish my thought or did I get distracted? I was saying that in Hamlet, the reflections of people is my favorite part. I don't know if I fully finished my thought, but in this one, I don't feel like it's doing that in the same way. I just don't feel like these characters are playing off of each other in a really memorable way, I guess. Good morning and happy Friday the 13th. I look like the moon today because I'm reprising my role as Casey Becker. I've been invited to do a live show with Gavin. Last year I dressed up as Casey Becker in this fantastic bob, and Gavin came up with the idea that we both dress up as her for a live show and just like do some reading sprints, have some fun games. I wore this amazing bob. Fun fact about the bob, I threw it away at the end of last year instead of this one. I bought 2 wigs. This one is hideous. You might remember me putting on a bald cap. I went out and got a wig cap, and if I had realized at that moment that I had the wrong wig, I would have righted my wrongs, but it was midnight last night when I realized, and today the live show is 10 a.m. I'm excited to be there, but I'm gonna look like an idiot. Oh no! And it was longer last night. I took scissors to it. I was hacking away. Again, if I had more time, I would have tried to straighten it. It's like 100% polyester, so I would have had to, you know, just put it under hot water and see what happens. But that's just not the life that we got to live. So anyway, in this live show, I'm going to finish The Death I Gave Him. I didn't really read any more last night, so we'll see how it goes. I'm the Casey Becker who got caught in the rain or was trying a new hairstyle or something happened.
One of the Scream film rankings. Okay, I feel like I've heard Kayla's before, but I don't know if I quite agree with it, because did you prefer the second one over the first one?
Yeah.
I saw this in Waterstones, and that's what made me think of it. Sister Lapis had a weapon made of wood. Okay,
oh, so now we have to go to the weapons.
Oh, Goosebumps titles, real or fake?
This is going to be so easy for you.
Okay, but what if I don't input and you have to play this one?
Oh, I know Say Cheese and Die. I know that one. All right, I did finish my book. I'm giving it 2.5. I don't know how I end up in this scenario where I'm reading my most anticipated books of the year and one of them is getting a rating that starts with a 2. It's just wrong and it's hurtful, and I wish I could just lie instead. I know that people are gonna ask me if I think it would be a better experience if they read Hamlet first or remind themselves of Hamlet first, and I genuinely do not have an answer. I don't think that I disliked it because I was comparing it to Hamlet. I really don't. And it is such a true retelling in so many ways that makes it so fun. But naturally, you would be more surprised by what happens in the book if you hadn't read the play. But even saying that out loud doesn't feel completely true, because I feel like the book itself gives itself away. I think Hayden was the perfect Hamlet. He really embodied that character, his indecisiveness. He was unsure a lot. He was questioning a lot of things. You're in his mind so much, and just the dense descriptions of everything was too much for me. I found myself just like glazed over once in a while. Like I would get to the bottom of a page. Has that ever happened to you? And you realize you didn't really take in all the information and you have to reread the page. So it was just paragraphs after paragraphs of descriptions of like everyone's hand movements and eyebrow raises and like every little thing. I don't know how I would sum it up. There's a lot of violence. There was a lot of death in that last third. There were accusations, who killed who, who's doing what, like what dealings are going on, what was happening leading up to this original death, who's trying to get the serum, is there anything going on behind the scenes of this lab? And I think the intent for a locked room mystery is to make you feel tense and claustrophobic. And fortunately or unfortunately, like the writing itself also made me feel claustrophobic. Like I was stuck in this book and I could not escape. And I guess if the author was going for the vibe of House of Leaves, where like you're so disoriented as the reader and so frustrated, just like the people in the book are, then it accomplished that goal. I just didn't end up loving it at the end of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow with something else. It's a new day. I'm just getting ready to film my book haul for the month. I wasn't feeling it for a couple months. Actually, I don't think I filmed one in two and a half. So I have all my books ready to go. I think I'm gonna wear my pumpkin-y shirt for the festive vibes. There's a lot of them. That's actually all of them. Some of them are on the floor. I think I have 40 books, which is the most probably in a while. I'm gonna try my best to be enthused. I'm not feeling like that today, this week, but I think sometimes treating BookTube like a job is good because it makes me show up and do the thing. And I think also putting out a video is like something nice, like something for people to watch, I guess. I don't subscribe to the idea that BookTube is for escapism. In the same way I don't think that books are just for escapism. I think that it's important to confront real life stuff. I also don't know that a book haul is really like the moment to talk about important stuff if I'm not like hauling specific books that are on a specific topic that feel relevant. So I think what I'll do is attach a fundraiser, because you can do that to videos, and just like offer up the ability to donate. Did I even say what I'm talking about? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But I think I'll put up a link to, I don't know, the thing about a Gaza relief fund is I don't know that there is any that are actively able to send money and people, because they're completely cut off right now. I need to do a little bit more research, but I have seen people share the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. So that is likely the people who are already on the ground and there and doing what they can. I think I would just encourage people to educate themselves, to encourage the people that you follow to educate themselves. This is something that I talked about quite a bit in 2021, and I remember getting some pushback feedback, and I just don't agree with the idea that supporting Palestine as being unoccupied anymore is something that is anti-Semitic. And I think it's really unfortunate the way that people spin things, and that the media spins things, and that people can be so easily swayed by the specific media that they have always consumed. I think almost anybody saying that they support Palestine not being occupied anymore is also in support of all civilians and children around the world not having to experience crises. But anyway, I'm sharing things from other people saying actual intelligent words and personal stories on my Instagram. So that is where I think my voice of support for other more relevant voices is more relevant than here. But anyway, in this stack is the book that I'm currently reading. So I only read a little bit yesterday, but I'll update you on my ratings. White Hills by Rebecca Roanhorse, who's one of the authors who I picked this up because of, I gave a 5. Navajos Don't Wear Elk Teeth by Conley Lyons, I gave a 3. Wingless by Marcy R. Rendon, I gave a 3. Quantum by Nick Medina, I gave a 5. And I realized that Nick Medina is not Nick Cutter, which was a really embarrassing realization, but I saw this book coming out from him this year and I was like, oh, that's interesting. It looks very Indigenous, but I don't know, like maybe Nick Cutter is Indigenous or feels comfortable writing about something. Anyway, after reading that story, I was like, oh, Nick Medina is a different person. I don't know how that happened to me, but I think I might pick that book up now. Hunger by Phoenix Boudreau was a 4, and TikTok by Sherry DeMoline was a 5. So I got through a good chunk of them, and they're about like blood quantum abuse. They're highlighting just colonialism and how it's still running rampant, but obviously, like, these are a lot of them kind of horror stories. So it's taking real horrific experiences that Indigenous people have had throughout history and making them modern, but still showing how horrific like things can be, like people collecting teeth. That story was truly something. So I'm going to continue in this, but I think I'm also going to read Mammoths at the Gates, which is also in that stack. I'm not going to pull it out right now, and I'll probably get through that pretty quickly. So next you'll see from me is my review for that. I have now filmed my video, edited, exported. I found a pimple on my nose that I didn't notice before. What else? I was able to connect it to that organization, though just as I was thinking, the people that I'm following from Gaza or who are family members of people in Gaza are confirming that they are cut off obviously from humanitarian aid. So while donations are necessary and will go to the people hopefully soon, the best way to support Palestinian citizens and what they're asking for is to talk about this, witness what they're going through, call for bombs to stop being dropped on them, and immediate humanitarian assistance to be allowed entry. This for you might involve calling and contacting your government representatives, so I'll link down below some hopefully helpful links to do so. We're talking about decades of oppression of a group of people who do not have the money, supplies, safety, water, media attention, financial and political backing from other countries, open crossings to allow medical assistance that the oppressive force does have. I know this is not what many people want in a reading vlog, but I also just feel like if you want to be an influencer, why not influence in a positive way? If you're gonna read 100 books a year, like, you have time to read up on something. And I know, and I feel that the majority of people like understand what I'm saying. Supporting the freedom of innocent Palestinian lives does not mean supporting the harm of innocent Israeli lives. Supporting a free Palestine does not mean condoning hate crime. But just based on when I've talked about this before, I expect a certain response as well, which is fine. I saw a quote that said, arguments are not action, and so I will not engage in such. I finished my book as well since I saw you last, and the good news is we're back to 5 stars, which feels amazing. The first 2 books in this series were 5 stars for me, and then I honestly genuinely cannot remember like what even happened Into the Riverlands that made it a 4, but I do know that Mammoths at the Gates gave me everything that I wanted from this series, as far as getting to know Chi more and more every kind of time. Sorry about the lighting. Not sorry enough to stand up again. We have our cleric Chi, who's jotting down stories, listening to storytelling, sharing things, keeping historical documents, and their mentor has passed, and that's what kicks off what happens in here, because Chi is returning to their home and seeing how things are different, and that's a really interesting focus of this book. Another interesting theme for me, and when you bring in storytelling and learning about people and learning secrets perhaps, is the idea that things you know can be just as dangerous as things you don't know. So how to share information, what information is important, what information should be kept to yourself. I really like that angle. And something that's happening in here and to do with the mammoths is there's this emperor who flooded the town. Like that's the historical story. And there are bones, there is death under the water, and those bones can tell a story. And now the water has been drained, and so there is the ability to share the history. And there's this way that the mammoths are used, and burial is used to describe a lot of things. Obviously I don't want to give too much away considering it's a 100-page story, but there was also this interesting point about like the devastation of being human that I thought was really sad and beautiful, where this isn't just a human kind of story, it's animals, it's creatures, it's beasts. And there was this passage about how maybe it would be better to be a beast, how being a human comes with so much baggage and so much responsibility, so much pain and emotion. And I just really liked everything this had to say. And the next cover just got revealed. I think that's a fox. I haven't read the synopsis, if there is a synopsis, but I just scrolled past the cover. So that is where we're at now, and I'll check in with you tomorrow, maybe the next day. Today I have a photo shoot with Sweet Legs, my old employer. They bring me back to model some of their, do some of their studio modeling to show their stuff. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to know what exactly it's going to be. Is it like a new color of something they already have, or is it a whole new product? Because since I left, they have been like coming out with crazy amounts of stuff, like sweaters and coats and dresses and all this type of stuff. I realized that I actually have the audiobook for Vampires of El Norte because Libro FM had it as one of their early advanced listener copies for reviewers, and I didn't listen to it advanced, but I will listen to it now. I think actually today is the last day of Hispanic Heritage Month, so this just feels like a great read. Isabel Cañas is Mexican American, and this is set in Mexico. So I listened to the audiobook on the way here, and we're following this woman named Nena. Well, in the first chapter, she was, I can't remember how old she was, early in her teens, I think, and she has this best friend named Nestor, and they were talking about how her family doesn't really want her being friends with him anymore because she's getting to a certain age. As she gets closer to marrying age, they want her to spend less time with boys and think more about like who she wants to marry and the family that she wants to be involved with and whatever. And then in the next chapter, we're from Nestor's perspective, and she was getting attacked by a vampire, or what we think is a vampire. And I just got to the point, I don't know what chapter it is, but here it is, 9 years later, and we're following them again, both from different perspectives, because I don't think that they currently like know each other or spend much time together. So I feel like it's gonna be one of those stories where they feel like they're fated kind of to be together, and the world just keeps bringing them back together. But who knows what has happened in the last 9 years, so we're gonna figure all that out. And yeah, I like the writing style so far. The first couple chapters were set in October. It was very fall, like crisp leaves, the fog rolling in, super atmospheric. I don't know why I just put on my seatbelt. I'm getting out. But now in the future, we're in February, so I don't know why that matters, but the tone is going to be different, I'm assuming. I like the writing, is what I'm saying. Anyway, I'll see you later today when I'm home. Hello again. The shoot went really well. It was easy and quick, and I got to model some new things, which is very exciting. I don't know when they'll come out, probably like a month from now. They did gift me one of their recent launches though. It's a shacket vest, and I just never think of myself as a vest girl, but I could be. Imagine it with my hair not looking atrocious, and it's so long. Sorry, I don't know how to get a good angle in this tiny room. Anyway, at this point in Vampires of El Norte, I am eating it up. I love the audiobook. I will be exclusively listening to it, but I think I'm gonna go out and buy my own physical copy because I find myself like wanting to reread this. I already feel like this is gonna be something I reread one day and highlight all of my favorite parts. I've been jotting down, going through the audiobook when there's been some really beautiful quotes. And one of them especially was in chapter 14. So this is where I'm pausing, or where I just have paused, and now I'm gonna get back into it. Nena and Nestor are back together physically, not relationship-wise, but they have something that they're doing together in this 9 years later storyline that I think is going to take us through the rest of the book. Nena really wants to prove to her family that she is capable and she is strong and she can make her own decisions because she's being propped up for this certain life. And Nestor is just constantly feeling like he has to prove himself because of all of the assumptions placed on him, the family that he's from, and nobody expects that much from him, basically. Meanwhile, Nena, everyone expects everything from her, to marry the right family, to get the right, alliance. And right now they're not fighting for their relationship. There is no relationship. They're just coming back into contact and figuring out what their dynamic even is, how they feel about each other, because they know how they feel about each other, but they don't know how the other feels about them. And there is like miscommunication and misunderstanding as this feels pretty romance heavy. It's got the romance tropes. There was even a moment where they had to like pretend to be together. So it's got a little bit of fake dating. I need to find where the quote was, but it was something about how Nestor is a man of dust and he cares for men of silver and does everything that men of silver want him to do. And I love that in the audiobook we're getting dual narrators. It's a great time. And their reunion is happening because we're in 1846 Mexico. The United States has invaded, and Nestor is a member of the auxiliary cavalry of ranchers. It's like a Western romance, historical horror. This is definitely all I'm going to be doing for the next couple hours, and I'll check in with you when, I don't know, maybe if I'm more than a third of the way in, maybe I'll check in with you 2/3 of the way in. I lied. It's only 3 chapters later, but I just want to tell you, I'm blushing. There's this back and forth between the two where she's basically saying, I want to be, this sounds stupid, she's like, I want to be bad, I want to be difficult, I want to challenge things, and he's making her like say mean things to him, and just, I don't feel like this book is going to be epically romantic. I don't feel like it's going to be explicit in any way, but so I'm appreciating these moments that come into it, and this is like how much romance I want in a book that's not romance first. This is romance by way of horror, but maybe she takes the banter game too far, and I love it. Exactly what I needed to be reading today. I have now made it to that 2/3 mark where I was going to update you. And earlier I was ready to kind of agree with the reviews that I've seen that this is not horror. It doesn't fit into the horror category well. But now at this point, if there is an overt scene where people are battling horror creatures, I think you have to label it horror. And I think obviously your experience with a genre is going to color how you interpret genres and subgenres. And so for me, having read so much horror that is marketed as horror, tagged as horror, but doesn't really have any horror elements, to me, this one, as far as like a not really horror book, feels clearly horror compared to so many others that I've read. I guess because Gothic literature is a subgenre and it feels very Gothic with that balance of romance and fear. Right now it's at the exact same level as the Hacienda was, so that makes me feel like it's going to be a 4. But this author is somebody who I can imagine reading for years and years to come. I hope she publishes so much more, and I could imagine her getting a 5 in the future. I don't know that I can pinpoint what exactly isn't perfect. The writing is so soft and descriptive and full of so much feeling. And I guess depending how it ends, we'll see. As predicted, the final rating from me for Vampires of El Norte is going to be 4.25. I love the cover so much. I am going to go buy myself a copy tomorrow. I want to own it. And Indigo has 20% off all horror books right now, which like nobody told me. I just happened to be on their website and I saw that it was discounted. So I'm going to grab it. Hopefully I don't grab too many more things, but that would have been good to know when I was buying Lone Women like last week. I would have waited. Anyway, Rob's on his way home from work. I think he's grabbing pizza and we're gonna watch a show together. We're currently watching a miniseries. Can't wait to finish it. I've been making a real effort to not talk about, promote, or like, you know, mention new releases, TV shows and movies from Struck Studios during the strikes. But just know, once that's all over, I'm gonna tell you all the things I've been watching. I feel like I would recommend, if you took my recommendation for The God of Endings and you enjoyed it, and you can enjoy a slower gothic vampire, but more just like life kind of story, I would definitely recommend The Vampires. Is it The Vampires or just Vampires? It's just Vampires of El Norte. But this recommendation does not go the other way. Like, if you read this and loved this, I don't think that The God of Endings is something that is similar. But if you read this and you like romance stuff, which that doesn't have, I just pronounced that really weird, you should also check this one out because it's got a similar vibe as far as how much real life versus horrific circumstances it's got going on. I think what's making this not a 5, if I had to really think about it, is that I care about these characters, especially the two main ones, because that's who we're following and who we're hearing from. I care about them more as this like literary couple than I do about them as individuals. Like, if we were gonna get a spin-off book or a prequel, or if this book only followed one of the two, I don't think I would be as invested. I don't think she's lacking in character development or characterization at all. I just don't know that they each stand alone as great protagonists the way that they do as just like this couple, and the way that they move together. And I do agree with a lot of the other reviews saying that I wish there was more vampires. I do feel happy with the amount that was in here, but I also think I could have enjoyed this if like a little bit more if it was more vampires and there was more deadly circumstances, or if the vampires were as are traditionally written, like as characters, humanized, like human characteristics. That wasn't what it was in here. They were creatures, they were beasts, they were this just like ominous threat. But I loved the writing, I loved the pace of this. It was slow to start. It definitely reminded me of the Hacienda, and now I don't know if I'm like remembering it poorly, but I think that this had pretty much identical tone as far as how dangerous it gets and the amount. This one had more romance. I think I just filmed a video for my channel members where I reacted and created a bracket of the 66 best horror books of the last 3 years and shared my thoughts, and the Hacienda came up and I wanted it to move further in the bracket, but there were so many good things on that list. Anyway, I'm happy that my reads are going well for this video now that it started off with not a great one, because if they all went poorly, I might have just canceled the video. But I'm gonna finish the anthology, read a bit tonight, read a bit tomorrow, and I'll tell you my final rating for that tomorrow. Liam and I decided to take a mental health day from school and work, and we're on a walk in the woods, so I thought I would tell you while we're here. I read, I think, like 5 more stories in the collection, and I gave the last 3 all 5 stars. I was talking to Gavin in our live show. He was mentioning how he hasn't really read many anthologies. Hold on, this is steep. Okay, we've reached the end of the path apparently. Gavin is just read Out There Screaming, the anthology, and he was saying that the middle part was so much better than like the beginning and end, and he was wondering if that's like a traditional experience. And I was saying, no, I think every anthology is kind of different. Sometimes they start out with a real bang and you can tell the author or the editor put the best stories first. But in the one I'm currently reading, I would say the best ones are in the middle. I just read one by Richard Van Camp. It was called something like The Scariest Story Ever Told, and it was so good, even though I previously have read a novella from him and didn't totally love it. So that's where I'm at with the anthology. Do you want to see our favorite leaves? This one was Liam's. This one got a little crumpled. It was already crumpled. Don't tell them. And then this one, there's my bundle of the day. Now we're gonna go find Halloween costumes. Okay, I have now completed my final book of the video, and my ratings for the rest were mostly 4s. There was a couple 2s. One was just because it was too short to really get an idea of what the story was that they wanted to tell. But then I had a couple 5s, including the last one in here by Wabgisha Grice called Limbs, which is great because obviously it's from an author that I've read from before and it was one of the reasons I picked up the anthology. And then another author I've read from was Darcy Little Badger, and it was called The Scientist Horror Story. That one was really good. Just as spacey as you would expect from that author. One of the only other 5s was an author I've never read from before. It was called Eulogy for a Brother Resurrected by Carson Faust. And it kind of reminded me of the vibe of Monstrilio. And in the section where it talks about the author and gives a little bio, it says he's coming out with his debut novel When the Living Haunt the Dead soon. So I don't know if that's already out, because there was a couple other ones in here that was like, this is a forthcoming book from this author, but it's already come out by the time I'm reading it. But I would say that's the #1 author in here that I've read something from them, and it makes me want to pick up a full novel. So that's exciting. I think overall, like mathematically, I have to give it a 4, which is awesome for an anthology. It definitely is dark fiction. So if I've talked about it before and really put it in the horror category, know that it is dark. There are definitely some horror stories, but it is not like a gory slasher haunted kind of anthology. There are definitely those stories in it, but it's more just dark themes and intense topics and horrific things occurring. Now let's hope that all 4 of these were on my most anticipated list of the year, because I'm gonna go through it right now and see how many books I've actually read. And perhaps there is a video that I could plan in December where I catch up on not just my most anticipated from the year, but a whole handful of books that I meant to have read by the end of 2023. In other years, I would have made this into its own standalone video, but right now we're just gonna run through it on double speed, no sound. We're starting with thrillers. That was a book club pick. 0 Days I will be reading like next week. I'm actually doing a full spoiler vlog for my members. The only one left was also a book club pick. The Last Word I read. The Only Survivors I have not. I do own it though. Thrift I also haven't. I don't know what's up with me in that one. I just can't pick it up. Maybe once it snows, it'll feel right. The Writing Retreat I read, also that one actually takes place in the snow, but I didn't know that. I read it, book club pick. Housewoman by Adora Nora I have not read yet. Then I had a couple cozy mysteries. A Good Day to Pie I read. Finley Donovan I read. Then into general fiction, I read House of Cotton. Oh my god, this is going well. I didn't read The Late Americans, though I did get it from the library. The Survivalists I've taken off my TBR. Yellowface I read and loved. Chlorine I read and loved. That was on my most anticipated? Wow, I don't remember that. Interesting Facts About Space hasn't actually come out yet, I don't think. I think it's an early 2024 release now. Family Lore I did end up reading. Vampires of El Norte is on here, that's exciting. Rouge by Mona Awad didn't even have a cover. I will be reading that again next week. The Salt Grows Heavy I did read. Unfortunately, I didn't like it. The Haunting of Alejandra I read. The Insatiable Volt Sisters I pre-ordered. It's another one on my TBR shelf. House with Good Bones, I sure did. I didn't love it. Spite House I read. Book club pick. How to Sell a Haunted House I read. Bad Cree I read. The Beast You Are I read. Ooh, Don't Fear the Reaper I read. Then into fantasy and sci-fi, I did read Feed Them Silence and I thought it was great. Camp Zero I haven't read yet. People are not liking it and I feel like I could be the outlier still, but it's hard to motivate myself to pick it up. The Mimic of Known Successes I do own. I haven't read yet. Ascension, different cover than what I read. I read it. I wanted to love it so bad, but I liked it. I liked it a good amount. Immortal Longings was like my most anticipated book of the year, and I did give it 5 stars, which felt very good. The Thick and the Lean I got from the library and returned. Last Tale of the Flower Bride I read and enjoyed. Venco I have not picked up yet. Lost in the Moment and Found I read. Oh, and then lastly, Romance. This is all gonna be no's. Practice Makes Perfect. Own it. Didn't read it. You Don't Have a Shot I didn't pick up. Happy Place I did read and liked. Yours Truly I bought, haven't read. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute I did read and really enjoyed. The Neighbor Favor, again, I own it. I haven't read it yet. And that's it. These are the stats for like how many I read and how many I haven't. And I feel better about it than I thought. Though I guess this video, I only knocked one off of that list. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be starting another reading vlog soon because I have many obligations. And I'll see you then. Bye.